Welcome to Making It in Asheville. This is a podcast where we interview different local Asheville entrepreneurs, creatives, artists here in town. I am Sarah, and this is Tony. We are your host. And today we are very excited to be interviewing Carlos and Liz, the founders and owners of Textura Rugs. So Carlos and Liz, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're up to today.
So I'm Liz. I'm the manager at Textura. What are we up to today? We are launching, we're launching our website today. So it's kind of this sort of serendipitous collision of us being able to do this and do that on the same day. But, you know, our store opens in about an hour. And so we'll be kind of just doing day-to-day stuff, you know, answering the phone, walk-ins. I don't know if we have any appointments today. Sometimes we have appointments.
No. Fantastic. Yeah. And is your website already live, the new website?
Not yet. It's going to be transferring over the weekend and hopefully live on Monday.
Cool.
Fantastic. Well, the one that you currently have is very nice. We were just browsing on there a little bit before the show and it looks great. So I'm excited to see what the new one looks like.
As am I. And this will be released in the future. So definitely they will have a brand new website by the time you listen to this. Go check it out.
Nice.
Cool.
Hi, so this is Carlos Palma. I'm the owner of Textura. And actually, I didn't really, well, she did mention it about the website being ready this weekend. And I wasn't quite aware that it was going out today. So that's a really good news for me too. I'm always like driving around, running errands, picking up special like requests for different customers in terms of rugs, which is what we sell. And so yesterday I was in Atlanta picking up some specific pieces for a few projects that we're working on. And I got back in kind of towards the end of the day and we talked briefly. Because the day before I wasn't here either. So then, you know, we spoke to Laura about doing this really good interview, which we were looking forward to it since a while back. And so this is good to be doing this, good to be, you know, getting the new website out. So we're very excited.
Yeah. The fourth quarter of 2020 seems to be off to a very exciting start for Textura. And so I'm wondering, when did your business start as Textura Rugs? How far into the rug selling game are the two of you? So we've read the bios online, but I'd love to hear a little bit of the backstory of the business and the both of you.
Well, the business itself, this particular business started last year in June. Actually, we opened the store, I think the 5th of June. So it's been a little bit over a year. But I guess our background in this industry goes much farther.
Yeah.
I've been in this industry for, now almost 21 years.
Wow.
So a little bit more than half of my life dealing with rugs. And that's been a great experience. You know, it's one of those things that you try and you just feel that it's your thing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what happened. And I've been very passionate over not only rugs, it's also, I think, finding that kind of activity or job that you do enjoy and also enjoy meeting, interacting with people.
Mm-hmm.
So all those things kind of really all met up together. And so I'm still here. And Elizabeth, she's been...
So Carlos and I met maybe 8 or 9 years ago when I was teaching Taekwondo for Asheville Sun Tzu. That was my full-time job after college. Huh. And he and his son were students. So we just became friends while I was teaching there, and he and Carlos Jr. were students. Carlos Jr. was probably 12
younger, maybe. Yeah.
11.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe it's been 10 years.
Yeah.
So, and I stayed in that profession for a long time, and I loved it. But for me, it felt like it wasn't sustainable in certain ways, like the schedule and just the, I had some injuries, and just, teaching is just this constant drain in some ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I was trying to kind of transition out of that. And I tried a couple different things that were sort of short-term jobs. And then I just posted on Facebook that I was looking for work. And Carlos sent me a message, and I was at like a jiu-jitsu tournament over a weekend, and I like went out to the parking lot to call him, and he said, "Hey, what do you think about coming to help me sell rugs?" And I thought this feels really not what I thought I was going to be doing. But I thought that Carlos would be a really incredible person to work for, and I was right about that. So that's that, and that was probably 3 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's been about 3 years ago. Yeah. So adding to the martial art school, which is that's where we met, and she was my instructor, by the way.
Fascinating.
So she used to teach me all these things there, which again, that's where we kind of met. And it's one of those things when you meet people and you have that really good chemistry, I guess, with energy, and how just you like someone as a person. So when I saw her posting on Facebook, which I'm not the most active on social media either, but I do check things just to see what friends are doing. And when I saw that, I was like, well, I know that she's capable of doing some physical work, because dealing with rugs, you do have to be able to move some heavy
rugs
things, and interacting with people. I mean, she's a great people's person. She's got a really nice personality, so I thought it was a great opportunity to have a really good co-worker and a friend. So since then, we really work together pretty much every day. It's like one of those things that sometimes you do have some really good starts, and then you kind of fall down and stuff like that. So no, we actually work together pretty well. She's a fast learner too, like knows how to treat people. She knows what we sell. She knows our principles, our main goals as a business and as people. So I feel very happy to have her.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, so many questions about martial arts and that experience, and also about how you guys work together, which we're going to come back to in a minute. But I want to learn more about what makes Textura rugs different. Like how are you guys choosing which rugs to select? And tell us more about your sort of unique selling points as a rug business, because there's a lot of places to get rugs, both online and locally. And tell us more about what you guys do that's different.
We work with a lot of interior designers. So I think one thing is that we always try to have a selection for them, and not just like for them in general, but designers that we've worked with for a long time. There's a lot of designers that Carlos has known for 10, 15 or more years. We will actually carry selections that we pick with them in mind. So when we go to select rugs, we'll think like, oh, so-and-so could really use this, so-and-so could really use that. And we just try to have in stock what we know they're going to be using based on who their clients are and what types of houses they're working on. So if we have someone who does a lot of really modern houses, someone who does more transitional houses, somebody who's doing like a lot of apartments, we just always kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But then I think specifically when we opened Textura, we wanted rugs to feel more accessible and not like they're only for people with a ton of money who can just spend thousands of dollars on rugs, but to really have something that, somebody my age could walk in and purchase, or somebody.
So I love how that sounds, and I think that what you're talking about is me, right? So I grew up in a house. My house my parents still don't have a rug. My grandparents had this like rug in their dining room that was always so beautiful and interesting. And it was very important to them. And I didn't necessarily understand why, because it just was kind of, to me, it was okay. And then so when Sarah and I moved in together in Brooklyn, literally one of the first things she did was like demand that we get like a little runner for our very narrow kitchen that we had. And I was like, really? Like, why? Like, why do we need a rug? And then we got a rug, and I was like, oh, I couldn't have seen it in my mind's eye, the value that it would add to the space and even the sound of the space. But definitely, like, I am now, like, when Sarah's like, I think we need a rug, I'm like, okay, sure. I don't know how to buy them. I don't know how to think about them. I don't know where to look. When Sarah's like, you can get rugs everywhere, I assume that that's true, and I've seen them, but I wouldn't know how to think about shopping for a rug or picking a rug. So clearly a designer, I think, is a type of a customer. But when you talk about this accessible 20-something might want to buy a rug, how do you communicate to those two seemingly different populations?
I got a little distracted. I'm sorry.
I feel like I'm talking too much, but I mean, it's just, when people walk in, we just ask them a few questions to figure out why they're coming in, and then we go from there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, one of the first things I'll ask is, do you know what type of rug you're looking for? And if they say yes, then they know what type they're looking for, and we go to that section. And if they say no, then I can say, well, we carry some different types of rugs, and then I can kind of go through the different quality levels and give them like sort of some ballpark prices. That way they feel like they have that information up front, and they're not like wasting our time or wasting their time looking at something that's out of their price range.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so another question that came up to me when you were talking about choosing a rug is something that I learned recently, and I don't know if you agree with this or if this is just like the golden rule of rugs, but I learned that you should pick out the rug before you do anything else in a room. Like, I read this somewhere online, like I'm trying to like...
It sounds like a rug salesman to me.
Yeah. No, but like it's because it's a lot easier, for example, to match a paint color to the rug or the furniture that you're buying than it is to find a rug to match everything else.
Well, we agree with that. all the years of experience, and particularly with interior designers, they always prefer to choose the rug first and then build up the room from that rug. But finding a rug to match certain furniture or home styles is not impossible either.
Yeah.
Especially, going back to the first questions on how we help people determine what they're looking for, or in terms of the type of rugs, because different rugs are made differently. Like some rugs are a little bit more delicate. Some rugs are built with a sturdier construction, so are more suitable for a foyer, a living room. So we do like to start up our service by asking like some of the questions that Elizabeth was saying, like, we ask about what space are you looking for. We do kind of pay attention to the age of the person. Sometimes we like to ask, do you have like kids, pets, and is it for a bathroom? So all these things are really helpful for us to kind of think, well, I think you have this in mind because you see it in magazines, but we also know that this may not be the most practical for maybe your your stage of life right now and the space where you're going to use it. So we really try to pay a lot of attention to help our customers and still find them something that they're happy with, in the right price range. And so then a lot of people do come, with a picture of the living room.
Yeah.
They say, well, we have this furniture. This is the wall color. And we look at the space, like how much natural light this space gets, and the color of the floor. And we, from us taking a lot of rugs to people's homes, we kind of have an idea on how colors change on different rugs. So then we kind of come up with these suggestions like, okay, here's what we suggest. They like this much better. Then we encourage people to try things, and we offer that service too. So we can actually make a selection, take them to their homes, put them down, help them arrange the furniture and everything. And once they find something that they like, they can actually live with that rug for a few days before they buy to make sure it's the right fit.
Wow.
I love that. Yeah. It really is. You're marrying this rug that you're buying. I feel like you have to make sure it's the right fit.
And I just think that the types of questions that you ask point towards a level of understanding of the topic and the materials that are like so many chess moves ahead of how I would think about the thing. Like I would be like, does it look good in the space? And what you're saying is like, if you have a short-haired white dog that's going to shed, doesn't matter if the black carpet looks good, you're going to have a nightmare maintaining it. And I see that and I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
That actually does come up way more often than you think. What color is your dog? Yeah, we do talk about that with clients.
Yeah. Well, because you're spending, again, you're marrying this rug. You're spending a lot of money typically on a rug, and yeah, it's useless if the dog just sheds all over it, or it gets torn up or colored on by the kids or whatever it is. So yeah, I can understand that would be a good question to make sure you ask.
And so 3 years ago or so, you got this question, what do you think about selling rugs with me? What happens next? Textura is 1.5 years old, so there's a little bit of time, 18 months or so of brainstorming Textura, or did you start selling Craigslist carpets and rugs? What did the world look like about 3 years ago?
Well, 3 years ago, we were both working at a different rug store in town.
Okay.
So we were working out of there. I was the store manager. Elizabeth was, of course, learning about rugs. And, it was our everyday job. Happy with what we did. And really, again, is like every other business where you establish all these friendships with clients and vendors, and so it becomes like your second family. And so we were there, and that went on. I mean, we used to travel to other states, some trade shows, but Textura really didn't come to mind until last year, May, basically.
That's a fast.
Wow.
May and June are really close together.
Not 18 months
there were
of brainstorming.
No thoughts about a new business.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. Sometimes life just makes some sharp turns.
Yeah.
And when that happens, you just gotta hold strong and just, as they say, roll with the punches and try to come out of it. So we did that. As things kind of took a turn, we, particularly me, like I was thinking, well, what should I do? Should I change careers? Should I do something else? I have a lot of family involved in construction, remodelings, and things like that, and other industries. But so I thought of possibly doing that because my other background, and back in Mexico, I'm originally from Mexico. My father was a builder, so I grew up helping him doing all that kind of work. And I'm the type who's always up to learn new things. So back in May, when things really changed, and we knew we needed to take a different route, I was a little bit of a conflicted with what to do. And some of my friends, designers, they reached out and they were like, well, we need rugs, and we want to continue buying them from you. And it's something that I really enjoy doing it. So I was like, well, I guess it's time to make a decision and maybe start up our own business, doing it in a way that we know it's better for our clients, for ourselves. So that was towards the end of May, like a week and a half before we opened the business. And I went out of Asheville area and tried to look for an empty space. Found this like 800 square foot space near Weaverville. And so I was like thinking, well, I guess we start here and see what happens. And we reached out to the landlord, signed up the lease, and registered the business, and reached out to a few suppliers.
Yeah.
And in a matter of a week and a half, we came in, repainted the walls, tried to fix up things, and Elizabeth decided to join me on this journey at that point. So,
Carlos, you make it sound so easy.
Yeah,
You're like, well, just it was a week before we started, and
I guess the one thing that really helped me is because I've been doing this for so long, so I didn't feel it was something new.
Yeah,
it's like starting a new business sometimes, something new that you really haven't done in a larger scale. So of course you kind of worry like what the outcome may be, but since I was always doing this for many years, so I didn't really fear that much.
Yeah.
I mean, and you had a customer base.
Yeah, and I think that it's an important note. And one of the thoughts is like, it's one thing to sell a product, it's another thing to start a business that sells a product. And I think that it's more common than not that people overanalyze and agonize over how do I start it? What is the thing? What documents do I need? How versus attempting to solve for the engine of the business, which is like, how am I going to sell the thing? And it seems like priorities, yours were, well, I know that I can sell it. Let's like figure out the details and let's go. Like, I don't want to overemphasize the little things. Am I right? That's what I heard. Is that actually how it felt, Elizabeth, in the early days? Or were there a lot of details that were stressing you out?
I think I think like both. Like on one hand, I felt really confident just from knowing Carlos and knowing that he's like a super reliable person. Like if he says he's going to do something, he follows through with it, and it doesn't matter like what type of gymnastics he has to do to accomplish that. Like it happens. And I'd known him long enough to trust that we were going to be okay, that the business was going to, kind of survive that first summer. But yeah, in terms of like the, some of the basic stuff, like just inventory, website, signage, vehicles, advertising, like that we kind of were like flying by the seat of our pants for a few months there and just sort of figuring it out as we went. And still are.
So, I mean, I think that that's fascinating because we come from a marketing services world where it makes perfect sense that I could decide to start a marketing business, file with the state of North Carolina, and then launch. It exists. Would you like to buy my services? It's a very different thing to me to file with the state of North Carolina and then have to purchase physical goods to then sell physical goods. And it's one thing if it's, whatever this little planter is in front of me that might cost 25 cents wholesale versus a rug, which I don't know how much it costs wholesale, but it's more than this little planter. And so like, how did you think about early days of inventory? Were you trying to keep it as small as possible and sell stuff right away? Was it a big bank loan? Was it credit cards? Like, how were you thinking about putting some of the inventory? Because I know that the two of you can sell rugs. You know that you have a community or past customers, but it's another thing to have rugs to sell.
True. So I guess, again, going back to the years in this industry really helped at that moment.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I mean, we didn't necessarily have all the funds to purchase all the inventory that we needed. Plus, we didn't need to have what we have right now at that time. Even though I know a lot of people over the years, we focused on those very, very important clients that we knew were going to buy our goods in that moment.
Yeah.
So that's what we did with a small capital and also trust from some vendors who knew we could sell their goods.
Yeah.
So they were willing to give us some extra merchandise to have on hand.
Yeah.
And we started with, 20% or 30% of what we have now.
Yeah.
But from the minute we opened up, I mean, we started selling.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's you have to be able to really balance things out, because as you may know in sales, I mean, yeah, you get capital in. Sometimes you maybe spend it off, right? And then later you're like, well, no, things are not moving. So yeah, we had to be really careful on how we manage our business. Like then, still today, but today we definitely feel more established and we don't have that same pressure as we did then. But yeah, the key answer for that was really having the right connections in terms of where to get things and who to sell things to. Yeah. That was always my philosophy in this doing sales. Like as long as you can sell and you're selling, you'll figure the rest out.
Right. Yeah.
The problem sometimes is when things don't move, when you don't have any capital, and then that's where things really gets more complicated.
Yeah.
So now we definitely have a better inventory for pretty much anyone who's looking for that first startup rug, or for a rug for like a second home, or for just a space where you don't want to spend much money. You want to just spend a couple $100. We have that. We have rugs for people who are looking for antique items, more like collectible pieces. We have those. We have contemporary pieces, transitional, vintage rugs.
And where do you source your rugs from? Because I know, a lot of some categories of rugs are made in other countries and are imported. I mean, that's a huge part of the rug industry from what I understand. But
True.
But yeah, how do you source them? Where do they come from?
Well, we work with people from Iran, which is where we get Persian rugs. We work with people from Turkey, from India, and a lot of these people, they have basically this business which they collect things in these countries where you find a lot of the hand knotted rugs, either vintage antique pieces, which it'll be like Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, and newer rugs from India, Pakistan. We work with importers who brings in, a countless number of styles and colors and sizes to warehouses either in New York, Atlanta, and so a lot of these pieces, we do go to the actual warehouses where everything gets stored, and we pick what we need. With a lot of the vintage pieces, sometimes we meet up with the vendors in certain trade shows, or as they collect pieces, they email us photos of all the new pieces, and we select them from the pictures, since we have the enough knowledge to be able to tell the look of a rug just from a picture.
Yeah, wow.
So that's how we do it.
So there are a lot of things that have happened over the last couple of minutes that I want to try and double underline or something. I think what you pointed to in the initial setup of a business and the way that you think about inventory is really seems to be dead on. I've not really worked in many inventory businesses on the back end. Sold plenty of inventory, but never thought about the back end. And there's some really compelling documents, or at least the best businesses seem to be able to buy product with things like credit from the vendor or really favorable terms from vendors, on consignment from vendors. And then they have a customer base that they can sell to, and they use shorter terms, higher prices. And theoretically, there are businesses like Gymshark, which is a Instagram famous fitness brand that started seemingly yesterday, but now is tens or hundreds of millions of dollars of a business that is getting paid by their vendors to sell the product. And that all has to do with cash flow cycles and when checks are due and how fast customers pay relative to how fast you need to pay your vendors. And so what you pointed towards was something like that, which makes a lot of sense. If you're a listener who's thinking about product stuff, having relationships is the name of the game, or growing a business that proves to your vendors that you are trustworthy and you can push out payment terms in 60 days or 90 days. Seems like it makes a lot of sense. And then the relationships with these vendors and having the expertise to be able to see a picture and know what's going on. So clearly we're not going to be able to jump the line. I don't see myself becoming a rug expert anytime soon, but are there some, I'll call them known or common concepts that people who are interested in learning about rugs might want to pay attention to? Like if it's called Persian and it's less than a 1/4 inch tall, it's not. Or what things? What things might we want to just highlight as notes about rugs?
It's a great question, and part of what we're hoping to accomplish with the new website is to answer a lot of those and give people some. Both we have a frequently asked question page, and then also a blog. So those are both going to be places that get regularly updated with kind of advice or information and education about both rugs and how to take care of rugs. So, There's a few kind of like go-to things to look for. But I think the main thing for me, if I'm telling someone, how to buy a rug, and I do this for friends who don't live in town, they're not going to buy it from us. But is to really talk to the person who's selling the rug and ask them questions and listen to their answers and listen to how they answer them. And do you get the sense that they're really trying to give you an answer based on like, I guess integrity and just giving you the right information, whether it's, favorable to them buying it or not, or whether they're just trying to come up with this really long story to get you to purchase something. Something Carlos says a lot to people is that it really doesn't matter so much, like, whether it's this really rare rug or whether it's this more normal rug, but do you love it? Do you want that in your room? Is it going to, serve the function of what you need it to? And so, we can tell people, if they bring us a rug and they want to know, okay, I bought this rug. Is it really a Turkish rug? We might look at it and say, well, no, it's actually an Indian rug. Is it really 80 years old? No, it's really 20 years old. We had someone recently brought in a rug who thought it was a silk rug. It wasn't. We'll
it's
help
polyester.
We'll help people with those questions. Yeah.
It's not silk.
But I think some other things to pay attention to, or a few things that can distinguish certain rugs from others, let's say. One main thing about of what's called Oriental rugs, which is a term that we're very familiar with. I think when you think about Oriental rugs, what comes to mind is this kind of medallion floral pattern and this like burgundies, reds, blues, navies, and colors like that. And that's because Persian rugs are like one of the biggest representatives for Oriental rugs, I guess. That's a typical look of a lot of the antique, old, vintage, even new Persian rugs. This very formal style, primary colors, a lot of detail. That's an indication of a lot of the more like the older look of the hand knotted rugs from Iran, which are Persian rugs, and also Turkish rugs too. Turkish rugs will also have that kind of similar look and feel. So that is a way to tell, well, this kind of has that typical Oriental rug look. And most likely the rug is from Iran or Turkey. Another thing to kind of use to be able to distinguish another type of rug is geometric patterns. Geometric patterns are normally rugs which are made in smaller villages outside in the countryside, whether it's Turkey, Iran, Azerbaijan, or Afghanistan. When you see those kind of patterns, and they don't come with a lot of different color options. Like normally they use very basic colors because in these places they use colors that they can get in those areas. Okay. So oftentimes you see reds, blacks, some creams, browns. So that's an indication of more of a tribal village rug. Very unique pieces. A lot of those rugs don't necessarily come in big room size pieces because, first of all, they're made by really regular people in smaller homes. So, of course, they're not going to have big rooms. Another thing, which is really a good way to tell if a rug is made in a city, it's the pattern too. If the pattern is a little bit more of this floral, formal style and a lot of detail, that's an indication of a city rug. Because, in cities, especially 50, 60, 100 years ago, of course, the style of decoration was a little bit more formal, a little bit more fancy, elegant. That's where you see that kind of style being used a lot back then.
That's crazy.
Wow.
And jumping into today and try to distinguish some new rugs from India or Pakistan is to find some more modern styles, like abstract designs, more stripe designs, or even transitional patterns, and with more modern colors too, which a lot of times are the soft neutral colors or these very saturated kind of colors. Those are made for today's market, and the big rug makers today are from India and Pakistan primarily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you see those,
you mentioned a term a couple of times. I just want to make sure that I am tracking with it. Transitional. So
Yes.
you talked about spaces that are transitional and then rugs that are transitional, or at least that's how I heard it. And so
transitional pattern or design rugs are those that can serve as a transition from or utilized in a space where it's not really, or how would you say,
it's
like
not
more
modern, but not
more
traditional.
of a versatile.
Got it.
It's
So it's not like
I
it
guess.
starts with one pattern, ends with a different pattern. There's a transition.
No,
No.
it's a reference to the type of interior design that
Got
that person is aiming for, and it's often people who have had like those really traditional red and navy rugs for decades, and they're wanting to kind of freshen up the way their house looks and have it look a little more contemporary, but they're not ready to take like a full-on dive into modern, abstract, edgy kind of interior decor. And so if they're working with the designer will offer them like these transitional options that feel updated but still feel kind of safe, and they can also work with more traditional furniture, more a more traditional house, an older house. So it's kind of a in between, like what was really popular 30, 40 years ago and what's really trending now.
Huh. How interesting. What about like, so I find it really fascinating what you said, Carlos, about how, geometric patterns typically come from smaller villages and they have smaller rugs. And so there's clear link between a cultural and a history and a style of rug. What else do you know about the history of rugs, and why do we have rugs? I mean, I know today they're obviously, they're this for aesthetic purposes, but it's also somewhat functional. But like, where did rugs come from?
Well, I think the rugs, like in history, like our human history, which starts like a lot of it starts in like Central Asian or like the Middle Eastern area there. I know that a lot of the first rugs were made in those areas, like Iran, the east part of Turkey, closer to Azerbaijan. Now in the news, you hear so much about this conflict going on in Azerbaijan and Armenia, in Karabakh, which is where they have these mountains called the Caucasus. And so I think they made rugs at the very beginning to use them as a way to keep either a tent or a small home warm. So they'll use them on the floor. They will hang them on the wall so to warm up a space. If you look at some old documentaries or books, you will see a lot of these tribes hanging rugs inside of their tents, and of course using them on the floor or on the beds. So I think those were the main purpose, and they always had smaller pieces because, again, a lot of these tribes. I mean, they moved around, so they will always pack them and move them to other places. That's what I know about rugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes.
I mean, at the beginning, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and I for me, and I don't know why this has come to mind, but there's a Paul Simon song called "Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes," and I don't know I don't know what that song's meant to tell by way of story, but I've often, when I've seen some of the prices of rugs, not being inside the industry, I'm like, that sounds like diamonds on the soles of your shoes. I mean, I'm going to walk on that. You know? And so it's, for something so practical, right? It creates more warmth in the space. It can be sound dampening, and it's beautiful. They're also, like, there's clearly incredible value placed in these some rugs that are, I guess, produced in a certain way or a certain age. And so is it just that, like, actual human beings spend days or years, like, hand knotting the fabrics? What types of things add value or differentiate if it's, I'm making up a size 8 feet by 8 feet X that costs $20,000 and 8 feet by 8 feet that costs $500? What are the differences?
Sure, it's a really good question. So definitely it has a lot to do with how much labor went into the rug, and also when and where did that labor happen, and what was the cost of labor in that country at that time. So, if it's a rug that's in current production, those prices are based on, what is being paid to make those rugs. And, like, for example, Turkish rugs, the labor costs more than Indian rugs. And that's just, based on a lot of different factors. The rugs do take a long time to make, especially hand knotted rugs. Each knot is tied by hand. We often, like, flip the rug over to the back and, like, point to the individual knots and show people, like, each one of these was tied one at a time. And even in a square inch of the rug, you might have between 80 and 200 knots for kind of a regular rug, and then, like, a really high quality rug might have.
I mean, it can go up to 1,000 knots or higher.
What?
So,
and how much space in an inch? A square foot? A square inch? What?
Square inch. Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
So thread count ain't got nothing on knot count. Is that
like,
a thing?
That's meditation right there. Like,
yeah, not count is a thing.
Not a thing.
But then also just like was the rug mass produced? Are there thousands of rugs that look just like that, or is that a one of a kind rug? That definitely affects the price. Is this a rug where there were a lot of rugs made in that area at that time, or just a few? Or, if it's an older rug, what kind of condition is it in? We see a lot of people who have a really old rug and imagine it to be extremely valuable, but if it's falling apart past the point of repair, or even if it can be repaired, sometimes the cost of repair might be more than what the rug is worth.
Where are you going to find somebody that can do 1,000 knots in an inch? Get out of here. Like, done. It's not happening. You're not bringing that back to life. Or maybe you are. I don't know. That sounds Looney Tunes. But okay.
A lot of the times those rugs with a very high knot count are pure silk rugs. They're not wool rugs. And it takes a master weaver to make a rug that fine. Not anyone can make a rug like that. So with those pieces, if you have an 8x8 pure silk rug with 1,000 knots or higher, the price could be as high as $30,000-$50,000. Crazy. If you have a rug that comes from, like, the area that I was commenting, the Azerbaijan, the Caucasus area there, which they never really produced a very high number of rugs, and they're known mostly as tribal pieces with a very unique patterns and colors. So those are very rare pieces, especially the antique pieces that are over 100 years or even older. If you come across one of those, even if it's a smaller piece, even a 3x5, 4x6, if it's in mint condition, those rugs could also have a very high value. Speaking of $50,000.
Who's a buyer for a 4x6 rug at $20,000? Is it like a museum at this point?
Yeah, well, yes, there are museums where they exhibit some of the oldest rugs, but there are also people who are collectors.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people who are really in love with antique pieces, because when you see them and you see how unique they are, nothing else will compare to those.
Yeah.
And of course, if you have the money, if you appreciate the art and everything, I mean, there's definitely market for them. Now, some of the least expensive rugs, I mean, a rug can also be made in a month and a half to 2 months. Going back to India now, where the rug industry is really strong, they could make a rug that may have only 80 knots per square inch, still by hand, in a month and a half to 2 months. And the value of that rug could be $1,000. So, and a very fine pure silk piece, half that size with 1,000 knots could easily take 2 years to make. So that's the difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that explains a lot about when you go to buy a rug and you're like, oh my gosh, why is this rug so expensive, or what makes it so precious? It's really fascinating to know more about what went behind it. Like there was these hands that were making this one by one. So I want to transition a little bit and go back to the business side of things. Perfect. Now that we've thoroughly geeked out on rugs. Tell us more about your different roles and how you guys work together. How do you separate your responsibilities and roles, and how does that all play out?
So we do a lot of the same things. First of all, like when it comes down to buying, we do a lot of that together. Other big decisions, we make those decisions together. So we definitely work very close and also share a lot of the same responsibilities. But Elizabeth does definitely most of the marketing, actually all of it, and marketing and all related to the technical side of like with the website, social media. She does a great job doing that too, and sales. So we wear a lot of the same hats, I guess. I'm the person who maybe goes out the most because, I deal with a lot of old customers, and a lot of the old customers, of course, they call me and they want me to personally take things to the job sites or meet them here. So oftentimes I'm busy handling a lot of sales or picking up like new shipments, and administrating really the business. I mean, I do a lot of that, but again, we basically share a lot of the same responsibilities here.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. One thing I'll add to that is a little bit of something that's a bit different is when it comes to like if we get a rug in that needs cleaning or repair, we do kind of split responsibility around repairs pretty evenly. We'll even kind of like look at the issue and whoever's more excited about trying to fix it can kind of like go for it. But Carlos manages and personally does like all the rug cleaning. So if somebody, and that's something that I really can't do with only 3 years of experience. You really want to have your rug cleaned by somebody who's been looking at rugs for decades and not just looking at rugs, but looking at rugs with different types of stains, because it's a combination of understanding both the, like what is on the rug and what types of dyes were used in the rug and what the rug is made of and how it's going to behave when it gets wet. So he actually like custom designs each cleaning process for each rug based on what it is and what's wrong with it. And it's very important because if it's done incorrectly, it can ruin a rug.
Yeah. And do you clean them in-house? Do you outsource that cleaning to trusted providers? How does that part work?
We do all the cleaning here. Of course, there are a few good companies who we consider definitely reliable options, but anybody who comes in and will ask us for our service, we take them in, and like Elizabeth said, we pay a lot of attention to the rugs and try to help them the best way possible, because I know not a lot of rug cleaning companies that use one procedure, and that's the one process they use for almost anything.
I would have imagined it's like, soap and then one of those like crazy vacuums, like a car wash cleans the interior of a car. and now that I think about that, when you have a $20,000 carpet, rug, $2,000, $800. I don't know if that all of a sudden makes any sense to just hit it with OxyClean and rip everything off. All of a sudden, you got a white carpet. Oh man! No,
So I oversee a lot of that process and participate in a lot of that process. But the other person that I guess we should mention is my son, who's 20 years old now, and he works here.
Great.
So he does a lot of that job, and we have another part-timer who's also 20. So the two of them do a lot of that process, but I oversee that whole process and to be sure they handle things correctly.
Love it. And so in a lot of shared, and then the overlap in the Venn diagram is large, and then it's a little bit of marketing, and it's a little bit of like expert maintenance, client relationship are like the two outer bounds. When it comes to running a business versus working in a business, have there been any major discoveries in yourselves over the last 18 months or so? Right. So we moved to town right as you guys launched Textura, and like remember some of those early DMs where we're like, we're just starting too, like how exciting. Like and I know that we're in fundamentally different headspaces and like workspaces, and so I'm wondering what has shown up for you both over the last 18 months. While Carlos is the same industry, does it feel fundamentally different?
Well, I guess the one thing that is definitely different is, like, because we are a small staff, really. So doing payroll and paying all the bills and just administrating that side of the business is definitely a pretty big task. That takes a lot. And I think that's the one thing that I find new.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I have a little bit of a better handle on being on time with everything. Because it takes time, like you got to do payroll like at a certain time and all these things and bills and things like that. And before I didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
So that was the main difference. I think everything else, I mean, I was very used to like selecting, doing all this, buying things and managing and
do you feel more stress? Does it feel or does it feel about the same plus payroll?
I think the level of stress comparing it to my old job, it's a little bit less.
What do you know? That sounds like a surprise. I'm excited. How does it feel less stressful? Because you're more in control of your own kind of destiny?
That's one reason, I think. But the second reason is, well, at my old job, we had, other people above me particularly. So, right. So yeah, that was and we had more people to manage too.
Got it.
We used to do trade shows and all these things. I used to program all these different things, manage people, the cleaning and everything. So it was a lot. So doing this now, I feel it's a little bit easier. Because first of all, the kind of inventory that we have is still smaller than what people will see in other rug stores, but it's a really good selection. So we don't have to go crazy try to find something for someone. Like we're very observant, like when it comes down to what to buy, what people are looking for in general. Mm-hmm. And that's what we have. We don't just like buy merchandise because we find a really good deal on something and we're just going to buy this and try to sell it. Mm-hmm. And really you push yourself to sell something new to people, even if that's not what they're looking for. So here we really customize our inventory to make it easier on us too. So that's another relief when we have people come in, like we don't have to open 50 rugs or 100 rugs to find one piece that they like. We may just open 3 or 5, and out of those 5, they may like 3 of them. Wow. So many things are just more simplified, and that makes a huge difference when it comes down to come in and work and do all the things that you need to do. Yeah.
We're also mostly paperless. And that's a big change.
Efficiency, I guess, is the thing that we are doing much better now. Yeah.
Love it. Mm-hmm. And is this your first time as a business owner, Elizabeth?
I'm not the owner.
Okay.
I'm not an owner.
She's not formally, but she's basically.
This is my first time having like how to describe it, like partnership input, I guess. Yeah, like I do feel like I have a lot of autonomy. Carlos definitely doesn't show up and like, give me a bunch of constructive feedback and then complain about something I forgot to do yesterday. And like if anything, it's kind of the other way around. Like, I'm a little bit like more on him about stuff than he is on me. So my stress level is way down since I've started working here. Like I have beautiful. The best schedule, like a lot of just things about the job that are really pleasant, that are really flexible, where I feel like really valued both as like a worker, but also as like a person. One thing that's important to both of us is to like make contributions to the community, to different organizations that are doing work that we view as really necessary and crucial, especially like I mean, this is true every year, but especially this year, like current circumstances have been really exacerbated. And so we are able to like have those conversations and say, okay, who do we want to support right now? What organization have we seen, making big moves that we can, put some money towards, or put some, amplify their work on social media or whatever it is. Like that's something that I've never really felt comfortable asking for at other jobs. Like, oh gosh, what if they don't agree with this or something? And like here, it's something that we do together. So that's been really, I think for me, that's the most important part of it.
Yeah. Heard. Yeah. I love that. I also am curious to go back to the martial arts component for a minute, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So I'm wondering if what you learned as a teacher of Taekwondo, did you teach any other forms of martial arts?
Just Taekwondo. I practiced Jiu-Jitsu, but I did not teach it except to very small children, which in that case, it was mostly just rolling on the floor.
Oh my gosh, you reminded of our niece, or Tony's niece. I guess my niece too. But
she does Taekwondo.
Yeah.
That's great.
It is so great. Yeah, she'll come and show us all her moves and her little like sounds, and yeah, it's great. But I'm wondering, what, if anything, have you learned from that experience that you're able to apply to life in general and what you do now?
Yes. And this, so the two owners at Sun Tzu, Michael and Tony, have been huge influencers just like in my life. I've known both of them since I was a teenager, and something they really emphasize over there is like the importance of like your foundational beginner level things as your daily practice, and how no matter how high up you get in anything, like to just really stay humble and keep doing the basics, like that the truth is in the basics, or the practice is in the basics. It's a journey, not a destination. Like the moves you learn as a white belt are the moves you do as a 3rd degree black belt. And you just do them over and over again, and they become really ingrained. And so even though I don't like actively practice the physical parts of martial arts anymore, it's definitely a mentality that I think goes into other areas of life. And I think Carlos agrees, and he still practices his martial arts stuff like more than me.
I'm still active.
Nice.
I love it.
Do you have I don't know, is there a morning or weekly routine that you practice on the regular?
Who, me?
Yeah, or both of you. I don't know. Maybe.
No, I mean, I practice normally almost every day.
Yeah.
I'm a person who likes to have routines,
mm-hmm.
and which martial arts is one of the important ones. So I do all my forms, sometimes after dinner, kind of later in the night or early in the morning. Or if I'm here at the store, like we're not open on Mondays, like for walk-ins, but we are for appointments. But a lot of times if I don't have to go anywhere, I come to the store and I'm just here doing stuff. So since we have more floor space, I use this space to do my forms and everything and just go crazy in here. But
I love that.
That I love doing, just repeat all these forms, and running is another thing that I like to do a lot. So that's my one way to decompress a lot of times, is go out on a run after work or before coming into work. Yeah, so those are my fun things to do.
There was in the town that I grew up in Madison, New Jersey, there was a hot dog vendor on the street, on Main Street. He was there pretty much every day that I can think of as a child. And when it was quiet, or I don't know if it was like a certain time of day, but it was, my guess was every day, he would do some martial art practice on the sidewalk to fill time. And I would absolutely, like, all I wanted were hot dogs as a kid, to like be near this hot dog vendor who had a practice, and the way that he used like the spatula to open every container and pull the thing, it was like exactly the same every single time. And it was so magical to watch. And there's something about how you talk through the basics and going through the forms that reminds me of that, but also of when I'm at my best, there is that repetition, and there is that there's this statement in I think it's the armed forces that say you don't, rise to a challenge, you regress to the level of your training. And so it's the things that we do constantly that will show up when it matters most. And so I'm just fascinated now by all that, and my head's spinning. It's really fun.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to move into what is known as the speed round. It's not speedy. It's just the final round of some lighter questions that we like to ask our guests.
Perfect. First up, do you have a memory of the first rug that mattered to you? It might have been a rug you sold, a rug in your grown-up house, or whatever. Is the first rug that you remember being impactful?
I do remember a rug. It was an antique rug from the Caucasus. It was such a rare piece. It was like a white runner. That rug was like over 100-year-old back then, and this is the first time I saw it was like maybe 18 years ago. And the colors were split up, like 2/3 of it was like a lighter gray color, and then the other third was like more of a blue color. But the pile was really nice and thick still. It was a geometric design. I think that's the only rug that I felt some kind of attachment to, or just it did something for me to remember. Wow. Because even though I love rugs and I sell rugs and I see a lot of rugs that I like, but I rarely get attached to any rugs. Like I just
sounds like a good
I like
thing.
this rug. I'm sorry?
That sounds like it could be a good thing. If you were attached to rugs, you'd raise the prices, you wouldn't sell them. I don't know if business is great if you get attached to every rug that you see that you like.
Oh no, I see rugs that I like, but I'm just happy to help someone find that right home for that rug. And so no, I rarely see something that I just say, oh yeah, this is like I'm gonna have this one.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Liz, what about for you?
I have one, and it's really funny because it wasn't a special rug at all. It wasn't even a unique rug, but it is a rug that was brought to us because this client, their dogs were playing, and then one dog got really scared because the other dog was too rough and like pooped all over the rug, like all over it. And it came to us, and they had to remove some of the pile because it was so damaged. And Carlos taught me how to repile rugs that day. And I remember thinking, like, rugs are so complicated. This is going to be so intimidating and scary. And I just like loved it. Like, wow. As soon as I figured out how to put the first knot back in where it was supposed to be, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And then I had like filled out a whole little section, and then like just to see how that process of putting the pile onto the foundation actually worked, and to be able to do it myself, that was like super humbling. And it's still, and then my next favorite rug was like actually an older antique rug that needed repiling that was like the first job that I did completely by myself. And I was like really proud of it, even though I think if I looked at it now, I'd be like, could have looked a little bit better.
That's cool.
But I think for me, it's like getting to know kind of the craftsmanship of it and how the rugs are put together. That's been the rugs that have taught me parts of that are the ones that I remember really well.
Great.
Yeah, I love that. What a story. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, next question. What is the most inspiring book, podcast, movie, any sort of media that you've consumed recently that you think is worth sharing?
Sure. Okay. Well, I'll
don't all talk at once now.
There is a racial justice educator named Monique Melton. Mm-hmm. She has a podcast called Shine Brighter Together. And for me, it's just been life-changing. She's really incredible with the way she breaks things down and the different people she has on her show. One of the people she brought onto her show was her son, who's like 7 or 8. And I listen to the episodes when they come out every week. It's like the first podcast I listen to when it's released.
Love it. We'll look her up.
Well, I don't really watch a lot of TV, or I'm always like, even when I'm like exercising, I don't even like play music or nothing. I'm just like, just myself.
Yeah.
So I haven't really, nothing that is really recent. I think one thing that I watched, which it was a series really, it was on Netflix. It was the Street Food Latin America that I was telling you about.
I watched it too, yeah.
It was really interesting because it showed some people from countries like in Argentina, Brazil, Ecuador, Mexico, Colombia, and you know, when you think about it, street food in mostly third world countries, these people kind of fighting to survive, doing something that some they love, some they learn to love it just out of necessity. And these were mostly stories of people who actually had succeeded in a timeline of like 20 years in their lives or even more. And I think it was in Ecuador or Bolivia where they showed these ladies called cholas, like the cholos that we kind of hear from California. We think like gangsters and stuff like that. And there are these ladies with these really colorful skirts with the little hats and things like that. It was just the stories of those people that really kind of, I guess, kind of touched me more than the actual food.
Yeah.
That was like the one thing that kind of stuck on me a little bit.
Cool. Well, speaking of food, I have a follow-up question, which is what's your favorite place to eat in Nashville, and where do you guys go when you go out?
Well, we both like to cook our own food a lot. I think that's which is a good thing, and also what it does is that it makes you a little bit more choosy and picky with options.
Sure.
But I'm sure Elizabeth has some favorites.
Yeah, I'm thinking carefully.
Or I mean, if you cook more at home, I mean, what's your favorite dish to cook at home?
Oh, that's
yeah. Sarah using these what is it? I don't know, the extreme word. Favorite meal, favorite restaurant.
I know the
right now.
Superlative.
I mean, it could
That's what I was looking
It could
for.
change. I don't know, but right now.
Well, you cook a lot of like curry kind of.
I cook out of cookbooks. So people always ask me. They're like, "Oh, you cook all the time. How did you learn?" And I'm like, I read the recipe and I follow it.
I always say that. I'm like, if you can read the recipe, you can.
Yeah,
cook.
if you can follow directions and have some amount of like day before planning, then you can become a really excellent cook.
Do you have a default cookbook, or like it's almost always giving you a win cookbook?
There is a book called I think it's called the Veggie Lover Sriracha Cookbook. And it's a cookbook where every single recipe has sriracha, and also they're all vegan.
I love that.
And that's maybe the first cookbook that really got me excited about cooking.
Love it.
That's one that I still go back to, even though I think I've had it for 7 or 8 years.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect answer. So I think final, second to last question is, if we had a magic wand, or someone in our audience had a magic wand and could grant you one wish today, what wish would that be?
I don't have one. I'm sorry. Yeah.
You know, not even like a sandwich. Not
is this like a wish for like me in my personal life,
yeah,
or
so
any?
It's a good question.
Like
we sometimes
wish.
Yeah, we'll do more. I say qualification, I guess. Sometimes I'm like, listen, this isn't a beauty pageant. There's no points for saving the world. It's just, is there anything that you're feeling a desire for, or a longing for, or a want? And it can be altruistic, but it certainly doesn't have to be.
Well, maybe I do have one,
okay,
if we're talking like that.
Yeah.
I guess just to kind of make this year to be a little bit of a better year for especially those who are really like struggling with political, things that are happening, and then the pandemic, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If the year would just be a little bit better for those who are really feeling this rough year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the one.
I have like so many different answers. I'm competing in my head with which one to say. It feels like a big commitment to say one of these out loud. But yeah, I mean, it's a similar thing, just this. It's been a lot of, moments this year of just feeling like kind of collective stress or collective grief or collective anger, and just for everyone who's in community to find ways to engage in a way that's meaningful and helpful with the people they interact with, like most directly, like with yourself, with the people you see every day, and then with the people who your actions affect every day. Like, to just I guess my wish would be for both me, myself, and for the people I'm around to have that as kind of like their framework for making decisions.
Yeah. I think those are two. Really I think those are two excellent answers.
Perfect.
Last question is, if our audience wants to connect with you, where can they find you on the internet?
Texturarugs.com. Mm-hmm. That's the website. Our Instagram handle is texturarugsnc, and that is also our Facebook page. So I would say in that order, like the website has a little contact form that folks can fill out that goes straight to our inbox, like to the one we both see. It's not like some random inbox that gets checked once a week. Like, we respond to those every day. And then direct messages on Instagram, I check those all day. So yeah.
Fantastic. Great. Liz and Carlos, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much.
This was fun.
We can't wait to buy our next rug from you guys. Yes. When we buy our home and we have all this space to fill out, we're coming to you.
Well, we missed the making it in Asheville coffee kind of gatherings, and the afterward kind of drinks and things like that. So hopefully soon we'll do that again.
Soon enough. Thank you again.
Yeah.